Everyone on Twitch the chance to join in. Hello everyone. My name is Thor. This is the Eurocast. Today Dante will not be here, unfortunately. He's he's less than 80 kilometers away from here, staying at a co-worker's house at the moment. He works for a Dutch company, so he has to actually go here and be here. And but because he's busy, I haven't actually had the chance to meet him. I'm so sorry, Dante. I know you're going to be listening back to this with your girlfriend when you're back in Italy. So so sorry I can't meet you. But it was the right time. We will meet another time, definitely. It'll be fun. It'll be fun to see him finally. I mean, I know what he looks like. Obviously, he's a good friend of mine. I actually have his WhatsApp, so I can always just contact him. Maybe he's even listening now. Oh my god, that would be something. Anyway, hello. We will see what the new topic covers. I think something just went wrong with the recording. I'm not sure exactly what. But that was weird. So if you guys are still listening, if you guys can still hear me, let's do that over again. Welcome to the Eurocast, everyone. I'll edit this out. Good evening. Hello. It's nice. Yeah, rest in peace. Rest in peace, Sassoli. Today's topics. I mean, Dante's not here, first of all. That makes it a bit of a sad episode. And we will, of course, be talking about the death of our beloved President of the European Parliament, David Sassoli. Today's topics will be FG updates, David Sassoli, Ukraine versus Russia, again, still. The new Europe, I want to talk a little bit about the future. Adversarial diplomacy, which covers, it also kind of covers Russia, but also China, Israel, other places. Fuck Russia. Well, I mean, Russian government, let's be honest, okay? I don't think many Russian citizens are actually pro war. I mean, we'll talk about that anyway. We'll also be talking about upcoming events this week. It's going to be a busy week. And of course, I'm going to give you a Chicho update, even though we don't know what Dante's cat looks like. Because he's chilling. So anyway, yeah, we'll fight to the end, exactly. But first, let's get down to business. So this week was a sad week. On Wednesday, it was actually Tuesday. Tuesday, we at 1 o'clock in the morning, we heard that David Sassoli had passed away. Now, for those that don't know, David Sassoli was the president of the European Parliament, one of our three main presidents. We actually have 5 presidents. Imagine that. But there's 3 main presidents. There's the president of the European Council, Charles Michel. There's the president of the Commission, basically the government of the EU. That's the lovely Ursula von der Leyen. Everyone knows her. She's been in the news so much. But the president of the European Parliament has been pretty quiet. And the reason was basically because Sassoli, of course, I mean, we're in COVID times now. And COVID times it's terrible. But Sassoli actually was trying to keep the Parliament running all this time. And he got sick, I think, about a year ago. And unfortunately passed away this week. So we'll be talking a little bit about him, about his history. Yeah, my man David, exactly, I mean, he will be sorely missed. I'm just going to pull up the political article, which was written, his memoriam, as it were. There we go. Which is I'll just read it for the people on Twitch. European Parliament President David Sassoli dies, age 65. Italian journalist turned politician helped steer EU legislature through historic budget talks in the first year of the coronavirus pandemic. David Maria Sassoli, an Italian reporter and former television news anchor who paralyzed his journalism career into a second act as a socialist politician and an almost accidental term as a European Parliament president, died Tuesday at a hospital in Aviano, Italy. He was 65. Sassoli died just days before the end of his term as president of the 705-member parliament, which is due to elect its successor in Strasbourg next week. He had been battling serious illness, including pneumonia, since September and had been hospitalized multiple times, most recently on December 26th, second Christmas Day. Oof. His death shortly after 1:15 a.m. was announced by spokesman Roberto Cuglio. Now, this is something that's dear to my heart. I mean, Sassoli was also really a humanitarian. He chaired a number of European Parliament working groups on refugee and well, human rights in general. Sorry. And I mean, because I'm like the admin of EU News, it's for me, it's close to my heart. I mean, journalism is something that it's often called the fifth estate, or the fourth estate actually. Fifth estate is actually a movie. I don't know why I keep getting those confused. Anyway, I mean the fourth estate. It's an unpaid or a privatized part of government, really. I mean, we all know that we have newspapers, and those newspapers have as a task to keep their eye on government and what they do, and report on bad practices as well. Put a light to the darkness. So, I mean, having someone like Sassoli in the European Parliament, and then as the president of the European Parliament, was something that really mattered, to me and to other people here on FGE. And, I mean, with his passing, and I mean, it was kind of unexpected because, like Frans Timmermans, he really didn't like being on the foreground all too much. He just liked to get stuff done. So, while the pandemic was going, and while he basically got sick, he was also still running the parliament. So, I mean, this is going to be a great miss. But on the positive side, we do have elections coming up this week, this coming week. And those are the elections for the European Parliament president. So, he almost made it for a year, which I mean, considering his health and stuff, I think it's really admirable. So rest in peace, David Sassoli, 65 years old. Yeah, and that's I mean, it's a sad time. Dante also wanted me to cover the funeral, by the way, but I never got around to it due to personal reasons, personal time management reasons. But let it be known that I think Dante will definitely want to talk about it next episode. So, looking forward to hearing his opinion on David Sassoli. I mean, yeah, we'll see what he has to say. So next topic, Ukraine versus Russia. Now, for all those people on Discord, if you're listening, if you want to join in the conversation on any of the upcoming topics, feel free to. You can raise your little hand in the Eurocast stage, and that will give me a signal like I want to talk. So this week, Ukraine versus Russia kind of blew up, didn't it? We had 3 meetings. Only, come on. I'm also reading the chat, guys. You can't get away from me. Yeah. But let's talk about this week, Ukraine Russia. After such a downer, we also need a topic which makes us happy. you know. So yeah, thanks, All Glory. That's a lovely picture there. um, but the Ukraine thing kind of blew up this week. Russia had a number of meetings, of course. First one with the United States, one-on-one bilateral meeting with Biden, which didn't really clear anything up. The next one was the Russia NATO meeting, which basically, I mean, Russia's stated goals are to not allow the Ukraine to join NATO, and possibly to make sure that, for example, other countries which are quote unquote within their influence sphere of influence, that they can, that they also shouldn't join NATO. Now, of course, NATO's never going to go along with this. Firstly, because NATO has no control over what the populations of those countries want to do. They could elect someone who says, oh, we want to join NATO. And secondly, NATO applications, there's no mechanism to reject them anyway. So people can apply all they want. Of course, if they will be accepted is the second thing. So that was the Russian NATO meeting done with. Putin didn't get anything from there. I believe he did, and I should mention this. He did get possible concessions from Biden to reduce the number of nukes in, for example, Poland. And not have as many exercises there. But I mean, from the talks themselves, we don't really know what the outcome of that is. Biden had indicated he wanted to offer it, but it didn't. It basically did. It didn't turn up in the conversation anyway. Of course, I mean, Russia and the United States will keep on talking. That's something that of course, considering that they are near neighbors in Alaska, and of course because of the U.S. involvement in the European theater, it's quite it's quite they're quite involved in every way, of course, and their connection to Ukraine. There was an agreement in first instance between Ukraine, Russia, the UK, and the United States that if Ukraine would give up its nuclear power, its nuclear weapons, at the end of the Cold War, that Russia, United States, the UK, and Ukraine would all basically guarantee the Ukraine's existence. Their borders and their right to exist as a state. Of course, I mean Russia took no notice of that when it came to the annexation of Crimea in that's now, what is it, almost 10 years ago. Oh my god, man, I'm getting old. Anyway, so I mean this is these talks with Russia and NATO, basically nothing. Nothing came from that. And then I think it was on Thursday they also talked to the OSCE, which is the Organization for State Security in Europe. I think I said that right. Russia, I mean, the OSCE is basically a forum to talk. Russia was already a member. Some people ask why. Well, I mean, it's for the OSCE is a peace organization, and like the United Nations, you can't exclude people and not talk to them if you want peace. You can't do that. That doesn't work. So this is more of a forum to talk. And I mean, Russia basically didn't get anything out of these talks. So the expectation is, and this is something that I've seen come across the U.S. news channels and stuff. I mean, is that Russia might do something in the next 30 days, if it does anything when it comes to Ukraine. And yeah, thank you, Nature 3. Late 2013 is when it all started. Yeah, I mean, it actually started more before that with the expansion of the European Union, and the expansion of NATO. And I mean, there are the idea that Russia has is that the United States is encroaching on its European theater, and that kind of pressure is supposedly what the Russians are using as a casus belli to say, well, we don't want Sweden, Finland, Ukraine, Georgia to join NATO. Of course, I mean, from our perspective, that's very, that's very, disingenuous. NATO is not a threat to Russia, But of course, from the Russian point of view, I mean, take into context how their country was decimated during the Second World War. This is an understandable kind of reaction to that, and it's not a it's not, as it were, a casus belli. So I mean, but it does indicate their way of thinking. Now, when it comes to Ukraine, I mean, people forget this. Ukraine is the cultural homeland, or part of the cultural homeland of the Russian people. Now, Ukraine, the history with Ukraine goes back way before the Second World War. Of course, we all know about the Holodomor as well, which was the big famine which happened there, and of course Chernobyl. Now, these things have kind of soured the relationship between Ukraine, the people in Ukraine itself, and the greater Russian quote unquote empire. And this whole this kind of, I mean, this is kind of a balancing act between. For the Russians, between their quote unquote strategic interests and their cultural interests. So there, Putin is he's a very clever man. I mean, he knows this stuff, right? He's built upon this. He knows that his popularity is sagging at the moment. Russia's not doing too great because of all the sanctions already imposed on it, because of their fuckery since since Putin basically got the job. And I mean, this is to me, this is kind of the crux of it. Putin is a savvy political player. He wants to make sure that he stays in power for as long as possible. And Ukraine figures into that. It gives the Russian people an external enemy. An external cultural reason to expand their territory, and of course, I mean, don't forget that a quarter of Ukraine is also very pro-Russian. I mean, Donbass and Luhansk republics didn't just appear out of nowhere. That fertile ground was already there for Putin to take advantage of. All Glory says, I think getting invaded by Russia also hurts Ukraine's support of Russia. Yeah, I mean but that's just it. I mean, yeah, that's I mean, that's the ultimate thing, the Western Ukrainians are basically done with it now. There's a reason that the government in Ukraine is so stable, and that's basically because everyone's done with Russia right now. It doesn't matter what happens as long as the government can protect me against Russia. The invasion of Crimea actually really set them on this irreversible path. But it already happened before. There's a very good book on Chernobyl, which I'll link later on in the chat. Which is basically the history of Chernobyl and what happens basically afterwards in the Ukrainian kind of political sphere. And what happened was the questions that were asked because of Chernobyl made the government in Kiev fold at the time. Ukraine was at the time already an independent state within the USSR. Right, of course, very allied to Russia. Russia didn't let anyone go, so there was no dissent between them and Russia. But when Chernobyl happened, that basically broke the Ukrainian Ukrainian political spectrum open. And this journalist, after chasing this story, got into serious trouble because of it, you know. But this was basically when the Russians already started to take leave of their cultural. I mean, the Ukrainians started taking leave of their cultural link to Russia. Russia, of course, didn't. You know, Russia always had the idea of empire, always had the idea of, you know, oh, it wasn't so bad, and you know, we weren't the bad guys, and I mean, it's yeah. Thank you. Yeah, Ukrainian Soviet Socialist Republic. Thanks for linking that there. Lovely. Yeah. That now it looks like I'm like a total commie right now on Twitch. You know. Anyway, you know, this conflict goes back, right? I mean, currently, Putin is looking for any reason to use Ukraine internally and also externally as a bludgeoning tool, because I mean his popularity basically depends on it. He's looking back to the days when he was popular for setting the Chechens right, for Georgia. For the first invasion of Ukraine, he got a lot of kudos for that as well. Russian people absolutely loved him for it, you know. And I was talking to Jack, who's our Russian friend here on the on forum Gotterfunken, and he basically confirmed that I mean there's a split, there's an age, you know, a generation split there. That more people that are older, you know, 30, 40 and older, they'll be more inclined to support Putin because you know, of the kind of the nationalism, and also because Putin is basically the one that quote unquote pulled Russia out of the shit in after the disastrous presidency of Boris Yeltsin. And Boris Yeltsin, I mean, I don't know if anyone, you know, kind of knows who Boris Yeltsin is, but he was like the drunkest of all Russians ever. And he could, like, you know, I mean, true story, right? True story. Boris Yeltsin, when he went on a trip to America, to visit, I think it was President Clinton at the time. Yeah, thanks, All Glory. There's Yeltsin. When he visited President Clinton at the time, he was not once but twice caught outside of his hotel room on the streets in his underwear drinking vodka. You know, the president of fucking Russia. Right, just you know, I mean, imagine, was it NYC police? Was it NYC police? I'm sure it was. I'm sure it was DC police that found him. You know, and this was just down the street from the White House, as far as I remember. So, you know, I mean, imagine like if your prime minister did that, right? So you know, you see a picture of him on the news. And it's like we caught him outside in his bathrobe, you know, eating pizza and, you know, just strolling along the street, you know, drinking and shit. Yeah, Boris Johnson. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that's true. Yeah, Boris Johnson. I could see that happening, but not right now. Maybe after he's like prime, bit like out, you know, and he has to take care of his 1,200 children or whatever he's got. But yeah, drinking and driving. But you know, there's like drinking and driving, right? Which is yeah, you know. Oh, you're point one over the scale, and you know you're already drinking and driving. But then there's like the next level, which is turning up in your bathrobe in the middle of the street, holding a slice of pizza and drinking vodka, right? I mean that's Boris Yeltsin for you, and he absolutely ruined Russia. Okay, I mean what he did is I don't know if people know how he got into power, but what happened was when the Soviet state basically fell apart, which can be directly attributed again to Chernobyl, which, you know, that Chernobyl basically finished the Russian state. When Gorbachev had to step down, the idea was free and fair elections. But there was a small cadre of military officers and old school apparatchiks who wanted to really get into this. You know, they really want to get into power in Russia. And what they did was basically They took a bunch of tanks, they drove into Moscow, and they took over the White House. Now, the White House is the big parliament building over there. It's not the same White House as in the States, which is super confusing, by the way, Russians. Change that, please. Paint it red or something like that. You know, it's kind of your color, so just do it. So they drove into the White House with the tanks, and Boris Yeltsin was a parliamentarian at the time, and he climbed on top of the tanks and he said, "We will not take this." And by doing that, he gained a lot of popular support, and that's how he got into power. You know, that's how he basically was, shuffled over Gorbachev. You know, I mean, Gorbachev was at the time, the military leaders had confined him to his dacha outside of Moscow, so he was unavailable. You know, and he was also, you know, not seen as a the leader that they wanted at the time. And Boris Yeltsin, because he stood up on the tank right in front of the White House and declared basically, "We will not take this. You know, we are taking our country back. This is a democratic country." You know, got elected president, and you know, he was totally unsuited to be president. He was, you know, because of him, the Russian state owned businesses were sold off for basically nothing to the oligarchs. You know, the people that already had some money in Russia. And who had the money in Russia? That was, of course, the people allied closely to things like the mafia, because, you know, there was no official way of making lots and lots of money in Russia. So you had, yeah, thank you. Paris has a picture of him standing on top of the tank. "Oh, you shall not, you know, this is my place." And, you know, that was a big moment. You know, that was a big moment because everyone in the West thought, "Oh shit, you know, Russia, a country with nukes that we just were at war with, is now, you know, under the control of these hardliner communists all of a sudden who just drove into Moscow with tanks, right?" And because the people in the tanks just refused to take the orders from the top, you know, that fizzled out quite quickly. But there was actually tank fire in the streets of Moscow, which, you know, I mean, that's just, you know, that's just insane. You know, to think of that happening, for example, here in the Netherlands, or, you know, in Italy, or, you know. So I mean, this was you know, this was the 90s. Welcome to the 90s, guys. So anyway, after the Yeltsin, Putin came into power. Yeltsin, quote unquote, chose Putin out of everyone to take his lead. Now, Putin at the time was totally unknown. No one had heard of him. You know, no one even knew his face. You know, he'd been in a few photos. Don't forget, I mean, at that time, the internet basically did not exist as it does now. You know, there was no, you know, the closest thing you got to chatting was IRC, which was, you know, reserved for university students and things like that. So there was no good media to cover this stuff. So no one knew who Putin was. You know, there was no way looking him up. A former KGB officer. So, you know, probably Yeltsin was pushed into accepting Putin in some way. You know, I can't accept. I mean, even Yeltsin, you know, at his most drunk, his oldest, and, you know, with his liver damage, just kind of, you know, he was just yellow at some point, you know. But for me, it was, you know, I mean, I watch this shit on TV. You know, I'm old enough to have seen this shit on TV, and I was just like, what the fuck, you know? This is just weird. This totally unknown guy, and Putin actually really turned it around. Now, Putin obviously has lots of mafia connections, and because of his work in the KGB, also had a very firm grip on how to manage the Russian halls of power. You know, so having these connections and being exactly. This is Paris posted a nice picture of him from during the time that he worked in Eastern Germany. Doesn't he look charming, guys? You know, you see him riding on a bear, don't you? Yeah. So I mean, you know, it's that's where Putin came from. You know, he was basically shunted into this job. And before this, no one had ever heard of him. He fixed Russia. you know. And by fix Russia, I mean he made it into a slightly less bad place, which put everyone in like his camp, you know, because Russia at the end of communism was bankrupt and people were starving, and it was, you know, the amount of drug use shot up, you know, in Moscow. Children living in poverty, you know, begging on the streets and stuff like that. And, you know, Russia going from, you know, this mighty empire to this low state is what convinced all the boomers to vote for him. You know, I mean, who wouldn't in that case? So, I mean, to me, what happened in those days is, you know, is very kind of indicative of, you know, why the Russian people are like, it's fine with Putin, you know, don't rock the boat, you know. Next to of course, the fact that he murders journalists and goes after his political opponents with NBC weapons, you know. I mean, apart from that, you know. So I mean, there's not really much pressure in Russia to get rid of him. There probably never will be, and his nationalist base is, of course, where he gains his overwhelming majority from, by getting involved in, for example, Chechnya, the first and the second Chechen war. That really kind of cemented him as someone that could keep the Russian Empire together. And now, I mean, the speculation is, of course, what kind of people does he surround himself with these days? Putin surrounds himself with not necessarily yes men, but, you know, they are all on his side and they know how to deal it. And Putin is very, very clever in that. You can see it, for example, in his choice of Foreign Minister Lavrov, who absolutely massacred Josep Borrell in Russian talks. I mean, basically what he did is he ambushed him during a news conference. But that kind of thing is super effective, you know. And we see, you know, how Putin and Lavrov's refusal to deal with the EU currently, you know, with these with talks with Ukraine, is also indicative of how he basically treats the EU and how he intends to kind of keep Europe out of the equation when it comes to Ukraine. This also very much goes back to what happened with MH17. You know, MH17 was the Malaysia Airlines, which was shot down over Ukraine, and crashed in rebel territory. And at the time, I mean, not the whole world was shocked, you know, by this event. But especially countries like Australia and the Netherlands lost a lot of citizens there. I remember those. I mean, as a Dutch person, that really still is ingrained in our collective minds here. That event. So he knows that, you know, when it comes to the Europeans, if he wants anything, he will have to still concede for that. And this is also one of the reasons he's kind of keeping them down. Why was it shot down? It was a quote unquote honest mistake. The Ukrainians had gotten the equipment from the Russians and mislabeled a 30,000 foot flying Boeing 787, was it? They mistook that for a Ukrainian transport jet and shot it down. Of course, I mean, you know, had they said, "Oh, my bad," and this happened during war and they shouldn't be flying here anyway, that would have been one thing. But basically, they decided to deny the whole thing and cover for the people that actually made the mistake. You know, so I mean, this is how Putin got into the situation where he basically doesn't want to deal with the EU, but he does want to deal with NATO and the US because that gives him power. As you know, as a former KGB officer, I'm sure that for him, part of this equation is also still the old system where the Soviet Union versus the Americans, kind of, that whole mad idea. That is what concerns him. We'll see this week and coming weeks if his his plan for Ukraine includes an invasion. It might just be all threatening. We don't know. I've been following the news. I mean, step by step. Lots of troop movements. The equipment's already there, basically. So what the Russians only have to do is just get the troops in. So it's very important to keep an eye on the troop movements there. When they start shipping 25,000 people towards Ukraine, then you know that they're not doing that for nothing. It's going to be either a hardcore pressure or there's going to be an invasion. Now I think there's now 125,000 troops on the border with Ukraine. So that's quite a force. The Ukrainians themselves. Let's talk about the Ukrainians as well. Because Tanufios, he says Ukraine is a bad spot. I think it's just going to get split in half, or then we're going to have a cold war. Yeah, I think so. There's a number of scenarios which are possible. One is that that Putin wants to have a land corridor to Crimea, which is understandable, but maybe not the most likely. Another one is that he wants to have split Ukraine in two and get everything east of the river there, which goes through Donbass. I can't remember. Is that Dnieper or? Just look that up. I'm so forgetful sometimes. Sorry about that, guys. The Dnieper River. I knew I was good. Anyway, so he might want everything east of the Dnieper River. That would basically give him Chernobyl and everything east of Kiev. Next exactly. Another scenario is that he actually wants Odessa. Odessa, of course, for Russians, has a special meaning. There's a lot of Russian history which happened in Odessa. That's of course a possibility that he wants to keep that, re-establish the area of the Russian Empire, or at least those cultural bits which he can sell to the Russian public. Another thing is that he wants the whole thing. That's another possibility. Now, if that happens, then it's all out war. And I can't imagine NATO sitting still for that either. I think if Russia flies anything west of the Dnieper River, I think NATO is going to be very, very nervous. Some analysts think that NATO would go for quote unquote the shock and awe tactic, which we saw George W. Bush Jr. use in Iraq against Saddam Hussein. Just overwhelming bombardments on Kiev, on things like that. Of course, we're hoping that doesn't happen. I think then NATO will get very, very nervous, and I think we'll see a lot more support for Ukraine than they currently get. When we're talking about the Ukrainian army at the moment, I've seen several documentaries on them, and I've kind of been keeping up with how their troop disposition is now. Their army is their government says 35,000 troops. So against the 125,000 that Russia have stationed around, and that's basically, I think that's like on the high side. Some analysts say it's 15. It's only half that they can actually field, so 15,000 troops. Still, I mean, they are on home turf. They have been preparing for this. They will not be caught with their pants down like the first time with Crimea and Donbass and Luhansk. That won't happen. I'm expecting, if there is an invasion, the Ukrainians will not give up easily. The closer the Russians want to get to Kiev, the more of the Ukrainian army will probably be set against them. And don't forget, I mean, Ukraine is there's there's a plane. The ground in Ukraine at the moment is frozen. Now would be a time for the Russians to invade because the ground is frozen. So they have tracks for that, but that won't last forever. So there's only a certain time span in which they can really act. So the Ukrainians are ready for this. Yeah, there was actually Houston R says here, Ukraine observed the current war in the Caucasus and saw the drones are now very effective. They bought a bunch of drones from Turkey and has made deals to produce them locally. Exactly, and one of these drones actually took out some artillery, which was stationed in I think in Donbass or Luhansk. I forget. And the Russians were really not happy with this drone strike, and it's also one of those things which kind of pushed Putin more towards the acceptance of we have to do something here. So at least that's what I think. So yeah, and if he wants Kiev, exactly, he'll want to see. But don't forget the Ukrainians. The Ukrainians also have a number of new technologies, which apart from drones, which will be probably used. I mean, the expectation is that from Odessa, the Russians in Crimea can be bombarded with the new rockets which the Ukrainians have bought. So I mean, the Ukrainians will not give this up easily. This will be an all-out war if anything happens. Yeah. So why doesn't Putin just try using corruption to control Ukraine? He tried. Yeah. Black Owl's right. The former leader of Ukraine was an incredibly corrupt man, and Putin basically had him in his pocket. And he was elected on the idea of joining the European Union and becoming more kind of Western. But when it came to actually starting the process, he stopped it and turned around and went to, you know what? No, we're going to go with Russia now. And this is one of the reasons that the Maidan revolution in Ukraine actually happened. People were really wanted his government to be more Western, and they decided to go more Eastern. And that was his downfall. Once that, and of course, I mean, there was a pressure from the CIA, and there was pressure from different European countries for the protesters to get jiggy and make Ukraine more Western as well in response to this. But I mean, the main reason basically was the people of Ukraine really had enough of this, and it was actually if you look and see, I have to see the amount of lands and villas and luxury apartments and stuff that the people ruling Ukraine had at the time was just incredible. I believe one of them actually had a theme park for himself. Imagine that, your own theme park. Thanks, Putin. Anyway, so yeah, I mean, we'll see what happens in the coming weeks. I believe the US has said 30 days. The next 30 days they're expecting. If anything happens, it'll happen. Yeah, thanks for Viktor Yanukovych. That's his name. He's now in exile. So good on the Ukrainians for getting rid of him. Anyway, let's see what happens there this week. It'll be interesting to see what happens. So next topic, the new Europe. I just want to talk a little bit about it. I think when we've had two topics which are so kind of negative, we kind of have to go a little bit positive. And one of the positive things I think to talk about is the future. Because the future for Europe is quite bright, apart from Ukraine and people dying and COVID and things like that. I follow a lot of tech news. So I mean, this is advice for anyone who like has a bad day and thinks that the world's going to shit. Just read some tech news. There's always good developments in tech. It will always make you happy. Drones, nice new chips, all with that kind of stuff. But when we're talking about the new Europe, I also think things like the new Green Deal and how we're going to deal with climate change. Problems. I mean, every problem is an opportunity in that way, and I think for Europe as it stands now in the world, we really sold short. You could see, well, I mean, like we talked about with Ukraine versus Russia. Russia doesn't want to deal with the EU, not just because we form an existential threat for them, but also because they just don't want to deal with the new upcomer. They don't want to acknowledge that we're basically gonna rule them at some point. No, I'm kidding. But I mean, for me, it's very important to kind of look at the future, and I think when we're talking about the far future, you can often get pretty idealistic, but looking at the near future is also important. And I'd like to just kind of highlight that this week, we'll have a new European Parliament president. Probably on Tuesday, actually. That's when the vote is. And of course, the new Green Deal is going full steam ahead now. That I think the next council meeting is in March. We'll be talking about. They will talk definitely about the new Green Deal and how to sign off on this. And these are things that we should keep in mind when we're talking about what's going to happen in the new Europe. And of course, I mean, 2022 will be a big year anyway. Macron's a re-election, possible re-election. Hungary will have its election this year. I know Inos, for example, our mod from Hungary is watching that like a hawk, right? And Andrews as well, right? Andrews definitely. April 3rd, yeah. Here we go, guys. I've already marked it in the calendar. Yeah, and All Glory says Macron 2022. Yeah, man, that would be nice. I mean, the thing about Macron is he had that controversy just a few days ago, two actually, where he hung the European flag from the Arc de Triomphe, and people thought that was just a little bit too much, right? So they removed it the day after. But I thought it was a nice gesture. I think, and I don't know if anyone remembers it when he was elected. He had the European anthem playing when he came on on the stage to accept his presidency, and I won, and I think having that, and of course the new Dutch government will push the EU in the right direction, definitely. So I mean, these are positive things, it's not all doom and gloom. I mean, around us, yes, don't go outside the EU, it's all doom and gloom. And I think it's good. It's nice. It's nice to live in a safe area, isn't it? Yeah, exactly. That was how it was, Paris. Steps on stage and Freude schöne Gotterfunken was worth it. I was very happy. So anyway, let's. I mean, this is something that will come up more often. I just want to have a little bit of a topic in between. Talking about the new Europe, what's going on. I'll fill you in on, for example, more tech developments next week. Perhaps a little bit of culture as well. We have the European culture subreddit, which our friend Citoyen Européen is very good at promoting. pH neutral and others very much involved. Of course, European Federalists. There's just no other subreddit. European Federalists. It's a wonderful place. So next week more. Yeah, and that was it. That's the new Europe, guys. Next topic: adversarial diplomacy. Now, adversarial diplomacy kind of talks. It kind of fits into the Ukraine versus Russia idea, but it's more broad than that. know, I just want to talk about how people deal with, not just the EU, but what kind of types of diplomacy are out there. And one of the things that I see a lot, and this is like a script, that diplomacy is not always diplomacy for the sake of getting problem solved. It's also used very much as a bludgeoning tool in the political arena. And I think that we see that happening more and more, and that's a bad kind of development, I think. An example is, for example, how China dealt with Hong Kong, or at least the perception of Hong Kong in the eyes of the British public. We also saw, for example, this week was a very popular story on my EU News subreddit, was the Israeli, one of the Israeli ministers shouting at a group of diplomats from the European Union who came to complain about Palestinian rights. We of course see it all the time. Ukraine, getting it from all sides, from the Russian diaspora, on Twitter, on social media. I mean, to be honest, right? If you believe anything the Russians say on social media, since the election of Donald Trump, sorry, but you're living under a rock. UK in Article 16, thank you very much. Yeah, exactly. Liz Truss, who's now replaced the David Frost, was it? I can't even remember his name. No, it was David Frost. Right, you've got so many Davids negotiating for the UK. It's hard to keep track. But now it's Liz Truss, who wanted to do a reset with the EU, a reset in relations with the EU, and get talks back on track when it comes to Northern Ireland, and at the same time threatened to trigger Article 16, which basically gets them out of the Northern Irish deal, and triggers this whole mechanism in which the EU will basically say, okay, we're going to sanction the hell out of you, Britain. So well done, Liz. But I mean, this is a wider trend. This kind of duplicitous diplomacy with as aim not the actual diplomacy, but going for things like popularity, local issues, populism. Populism is the word. So this is something that, again, this is something that will come back to a few times in the coming week and weeks. These are things that we'll definitely keep an eye on. And that's it for adversarial diplomacy. Next one, upcoming events. And just want to highlight that tomorrow will be MEP Assistant's first news review. Check out his Twitch, twitch.tv/MEP Assistant. Very nice guy. Spoken to him often, and it's nice. He does good podcasts. He does good interviews. Definitely check him out if you haven't yet. This week as well, we'll have a Meet EU. Let me just pull that up. I think that's on Tuesday. Let's go in here. Tuesday the 18th of January at 7 o'clock. It's about Portugal. As Portugal's state budget was not approved, the president dissolved the parliament, called snap elections on January 30th. Our members, Dinis and Kaleo, both political science students, will explain to you what is at stake. So check that out, guys. Portugal, pretty important. It's in the West. So sorry, Eastern Europe. It's not like you don't matter, but Portugal has money. Kidding. Anyway, check those two events out. Of course, we'll be keeping an eye on the European Parliament this week. The plenaries are back on after the winter stop. Of course, there will be tributes to David Sassoli on the first day, and the re-election, the new election of the new EU parliamentary president. So, keep an eye on those. I'll ping you. I'll ping you if necessary. Further, let me just check the calendar. Another thing, by the way, if you're on Forum Gotterfunken and you type in /calendar, you will get a nice calendar for the coming week. And you can also look further than that. It does only go up to about 20 entries in total. I think maybe even 10. So, you know, keep an eye on that. You can't see everything that's going to happen in a month because, you know, that your inbox will be, your screen would be full of calendar. It's not nice. Let's see. Oh, yeah. Presidential vote in Italy this week. Let's see. There's also an EU social media workshop which you can join. Check it out all on the calendar, and we'll keep you up to date. And with that, I think that we're there. The last topic would be Chicho. Chicho is Dante's cat. Dante's cat is at the moment somewhere where we don't know because Dante is here in the Netherlands. Yeah, we'll see. We'll see what's up with him next week. You know, if he survived. If he didn't survive, you know, I think Dante will be very upset. So let's just hope for the best. And that's it for the Eurocast, guys. It's been an hour. Yeah, it's been an hour. So I hope you had a good time. And next week we'll see if Dante can join us again. And it was a pleasure. Check us out on Twitch, of course. Here on Forum Gotterfunken, and I hope to see you there. I'll be on the audio channel for the post-match. Night, everyone. Bye-bye.